Quarterback issues have plagued Auburn for far too long, and the time to fix that is now.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off, and you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie 5.
Yes, sir. We're back at another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie 5, and we're ready to get after it. Happy Monday. The football season is over, but recruiting season, portal season, rebuilding season has just begun, and it's going to be fast, and it's going to be furious, and quarterback is going to dominate the conversation, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Talk about how we got here, what needs to be fixed, and how do you do it? What's the move? What does getting it fixed look like? We're going to dive all into that shortly. But before we get started, we got to give a shout out to Mybookie.ag. Use coupon code NEXTROUND for a 300% deposit bonus in the casino. So go take those, whatever your deposit is, multiply it by 3, take that free play, win a bunch of money in the casino, then go over to the sports book and bet that massive sports book any possible way that you can bet it. There's college basketball every single night, tons of different ways to bet. A lot of fun, easy deposits, easy withdrawals. Check them out, mybookie.ag. Okay, the season's over. We no longer can complain about we no longer can complain about the quarterback play because we don't have any games left. So that portion of it's over. Okay, we can all agree that quarterback over multiple staffs now, and quarterback play in general, and maybe even management of quarterbacks at Auburn has been a sore tooth now for, at least 4 or 5 years. And it's time to pull that tooth. Okay. This is the time to get it fixed. The closing out with landing, hopefully, a 5-star quarterback in Deuce Knight, giving you 2 elite high school prospects that are going to be in the system. And then now you have the opportunity to go to the portal a little bit more prepared. We're going to talk about how we're more prepared and stuff like that in a little bit later. But now's the time to fix it. But how do we get here? I think a lot of what happened has to go back to, when he was hired. The timeline of hiring a coach just really sucks. Yet when you hire them, you're trying at that point in time, you're trying to close high school kids, you're trying to hire a staff, you're trying to work the portal, you're trying to do it all at once. And I think it's borderline impossible for a new coach to come in and get all of it right on the first go round. And there was a lot of names floated around in the portal that first off season at quarterback. Just for whatever reason, things didn't work out. And then you get to the spring, you're settled a little bit, and you bring in Peyton Thorne. And, the next football season didn't go quite as expected, not even remotely close to expected. And then the decision came, do we move on from Peyton Thorne, or do we try to build around him? And that was a conversation that was had. And it was a conversation that I don't think was something that was decided on lightly. There was Cam Ward. There was Riley Leonard. I think most people that I talk to think that Riley Leonard was going to be your quarterback for this past season. Riley Leonard, there was almost an agreement in place, to come to Auburn, and then Notre Dame stepped up to the plate and raised the money, raised the NIL number. And I think there was a little bit of pride, and there was a little bit of hurt feelings that in hindsight, it would have been nice to swallow and move on from and just play ball with Riley Leonard, but that didn't work out. And Cam Ward was not one that was ever going to come to Auburn. We got to stop talking about Cam Ward. It would have been great to have had a shot at him. It was never the situation that Auburn had an opportunity to get Cam Ward and just chose not to. He was never coming to the SEC. He was never going to play for any team in our conference, and he made the right decision. He went to Miami, who needed a quarterback, who's going to play a powder puff schedule, and he lit that schedule up. He lit that schedule up. I know they just lost to Syracuse, but Cam Ward was never going to happen. So then after those two guys are gone, then you got to make a decision. Do we just go talk to every quarterback that is interested and sort of really, I guess, maybe destroy the chemistry of the quarterback room? Do you do that? Or do you look at the money that you could have spent on a quarterback and do you try to surround Peyton and try to build that 2025 class to give you a little bit more stability moving forward, to give you a little bit more of a firm foundation? Or do you just try to throw something against the wall and see if it sticks? Maybe you luck up and get a Kyle McCord. Maybe you luck up and get, one of the other ones that had a decent season, transfers that had a decent season. Or, maybe you don't. Maybe you get another bust, and then now you're in a situation where you've kind of depleted some chemistry. You've diverted funds that could go towards that 2025 class. The logic made sense on why you roll back with Peyton Thorne. The logic made a lot of sense. The problem is there were some things that you probably should have seen that were holdover issues from last year that reared their head again and ultimately led to the same type mistakes that you saw the year prior. And that's unfortunate. And but again, I understand the logic behind it, but the logic didn't work out in our favor. And there was also some misses there was some strategy issues on offensive line that really hurt us. We got some of the last visits instead of the first visits, and some guys that ended up being really good SEC players and players in G5 schools that Auburn targeted, that if you get them instead of, maybe a Percy Lewis, that for whatever reason that just didn't work out. You probably have a little bit better situation in front of Peyton on the offensive line. I still think the offensive line was a little bit of a mess because you just didn't have a true left tackle. Dylan Wade is a great player, but he's just not a left tackle. Percy Lewis was an issue up until he was benched. And then when you move Dylan Wade out, you have to take what you get at guard, at the left guard spot. So again, I understand the strategy, but from the organization spot you had off the field and everything, it just didn't pan out the way that you had it. It didn't work out the way I had in my head. You know what I mean? That happens all the time, where you have an idea in your head and you have a plan and it's going to work out perfectly, and then maybe you execute that plan, but the results don't end up like you think it should have. And I think that's what happened with this whole situation this past season. And the thing I always look for is, what do you do to fix it? What do you do to fix it? You only get so many of those until you got to start seeing results. But what are you doing to fix it? Are you blaming others, or are you doing things to fix it? So we'll talk about what was being done to fix it in just a second. But before we do that, we got to give a shout out to our boy Ford Stokes with Active Wealth. Sign up today. Go to retirementresults.com/plan. Get your free custom portfolio analysis. There's no reason not to double check, triple check, quadruple check to make sure you're doing the things that you need to do to stretch your dollar that you've worked so hard for as far as it possibly can go. Big Auburn fan. I know he's watching signing day that's coming up. I know he's ready for the portal to open up and the portal to get popping. So you can make a great friend at the same time. So tell him War Eagle, tell him we sent you. That's Ford Stokes with Active Wealth. Sorry, I lost my notes. The clock right now has kind of expired on all of the logic, on all of the plans, on all of the fixes. You may have done some things to fix some stuff, and we'll talk about that again in just a second. But the time to get this stuff fixed is now. You don't have any more. There's no more grace period, and I think that's stating the obvious. I think we all feel that. You got about 35 days. And honestly, it's not. It shouldn't. If portal is the answer, it better not be 35 days. It better be about 10 days. However long it takes to get the portal open and the time to get a quarterback on campus, so it doesn't look like you tampered. You got to do it fast. I don't think you can wait. But you got about 35 days to get this thing fixed. You put some pieces in place, but there's no more time. Like, there's no more fingers that we can point anymore. You fix some things that we thought were the problem. And now you have to hit on your guy. Okay. You hired Will Redmond in the offseason. Will Redmond is your GM. This is supposed to be his time to shine. This is supposed to be his wheelhouse. This is what he does. This is what he lives for, helping putting together the roster that makes sense moving forward. So now you got to hit. I really wish we could have gotten Will Redmond at the beginning of this tenure, but you got him now, and you got to hit now. Because you don't have any more misses. You don't have any more opportunities based off of the results of the past 2 seasons. If you win 7 or 8 games, you may have a little bit more leeway, but you don't. You didn't do that. And you showed a lot of the same sort of bog down that you had last year. Now I will say this. There was a vast improvement in passing numbers. There was a vast improvement in offensive numbers in general, but they did not result in wins, and that has to change. And I think a lot of that was based off of either miscommunication or just the quarterback play in general. If you typically have some issues that are hindering you from getting stuff done, as long as you're doing the stuff behind the scenes to fix those, I can live with that. And that's what I think I've seen. I feel like I've seen from the recruiting standpoint, from the off the field personnel standpoint. I love the addition of Kenyatta Watson. Obviously, love the addition of Will Redmond. But the problem is you don't just get to continue leaning on that. And you only have so many of those with fans. You only have so many of those with the money. You only have so many of those with people that are influential to say, hey, a reason is different from an excuse, but a reason can eventually become an excuse if you don't see change. And there's got to be some change. And they got to hit on their guy this time. They got to hit on their guy, and they may have to hit on 2 guys. And we'll talk about why in just a second. But you've remedied a lot of the things that you've said have kept you from being able to get where you need to be. Now you got to go do it. So the portal opens in a couple of days, December 9th, and you got to be on it. You got to be already ready and prepared, and that's on a Monday. And you better start having guys coming in the middle of the week. You better start having if you got some guys in mind, you better start having them coming in the middle of the week and not waiting until the weekend to start hosting folks, because this portal is going to be explosive. This portal is going to be crazy. Things are going to move fast, and you got to be on it. You got to be on it. And you got to be prepared, and you got to be ready to go. So what type of quarterback does Auburn need? I think that's a really good question. I think that's a really good conversation. If Hugh Freeze is going to be the primary play caller, what is a Hugh Freeze quarterback? What does a Hugh Freeze quarterback look like? And what is it going to take for someone to come in one season and be able to grasp everything and be able to win next year? Because that's what has to happen. You have to win next year. You have to. You got to be in the conversation. You got to be in the playoff conversation. I mean, and honestly, if you look at it this year, that's you're in the conversation with 3 losses in the SEC. How many 3-loss SEC teams are there that are going to be vying for one of those coveted, playoff spots, 4th or 5th spot? There's a lot of them. Auburn can be a 3-win regular season. I mean, a 3-loss regular season team. I think they're much closer to being that than they are to continue to be a 7-loss team or a whatever our record was in the SEC, 6-loss SEC team. I think they're much closer to being a 3-loss overall team than a 7-loss overall team. So what type of quarterback gets Auburn there? First off, it's clear to me that the RPO system, which I do think ultimately for Auburn is a great system to help disguise some deficiencies, natural deficiencies that's just tough for Auburn to go up and compete head to head with some of the bigger schools for those coveted offensive line positions. Things like that help you to where you don't have to have so many decisions to be made. You can just literally run over people. Auburn can't do that right now. And it may be a while before Auburn can do that. The RPO is not something that I feel like people can just pick up real easy and roll with. So I think you got to have somebody that's got a little bit of experience running some type of RPOs. Deuce Knight in high school, they run a lot of RPOs in that offense. That's why I think he's such a good natural fit at Auburn. Walker White ran a lot of RPO stuff in high school. So when you're looking for your college guy, it's not just as easy as saying, let's go look at the stat sheet. Let's figure out who's the best passer, and let's just go get him. You got to have – sometimes you may have to take the guy with a less impressive stat sheet, but is the better fit for the system. Now, I'm not saying I know who that is, but I do think RPO experience, based off what I've seen, is vital. Peyton Thorne, I don't know, had a ton of RPO experience at Michigan State. That doesn't seem like that was what their type of offense was. And then you change offenses from Philip Montgomery to Hugh. And I talked to Peyton personally in the offseason. It's there was no crossover. It was completely different. That's one thing that's sort of underrated as far as why you saw some issues, because it was a completely new offensive overhaul in one offseason. But I digress from that. RPO is important. I think being mobile is important. I don't think it's vital, but I think it's important. And I'm not necessarily meaning like Jalen Milroe or Malik Willis type mobile. Just the ability to not be a statue, the ability to be able to extend plays, because I do think you can get I think you can probably get some stuff. You can get better on the offensive line, but at the end of the day, that's still a work in progress. That position group is still going to be a work in progress, even if you do get a blockbuster left tackle. You still got some stuff that you got to work through. You still got some positions you got to develop along that line. So I don't necessarily think in one offseason Auburn's going to have this, stonewall NFL offensive line just by going through the portal. I think you may be able to get some really good additions, and I think you may be able to be better. But at the end of the day, mobility to me is going to be key. Huge to be able to manipulate the pocket, extend plays, because I think you're just going to have to do that. You're going to have to do that behind this offensive line that you're going to have next year. Toughness is going to be something that's big. Peyton did not lack that. Peyton did not lack toughness. Mental toughness may be a little bit different. Physical toughness and mental toughness are two totally different things. You got to have both. I think you got to be able to weather a storm when things go bad. You got to be able to turn things around when things aren't going your way. You can't let one bad decision, or you can't let, hey, let's just be honest. Like, you can't let getting pressure, you can't let seeing the rush get into your head and affect your play. I think toughness, both physically and mentally, is something that's huge. Very, very, very much needed. That the it factor, there's no way to put a metric on that. There's just players, they just got it. They're going to find it on third down. They're going to find the big completion. They're going to make the big pass. It factor is something that's not measurable. You just know it when you see it. And I think that's part of it. I don't think there's going to be a Cam Ward. I don't think there's going to be an obvious guy in this portal that's going to be just a complete 100% home run, no brainer. I think you're going to test your off the field eval / scouting team to their max. And I think that's why you brought these guys in. That's why you pay them the big bucks. They're going to earn it this year because, again, I don't think there's that obvious guy out there. I really think he's not in the portal yet, but I think John Mateer is the closest thing to that, and from Washington State. And there's no guarantee he'll even go into the portal. But if he does go into the portal, I would guess Oklahoma would probably play a big factor in that because I think they want his offensive coordinator. So that may be the closest one to a Cam Ward. He does have the it factor to me. But again, I don't know that A, he's going to go into the portal, or B, if he'll even be attainable should he go into the portal. But again, I'm just saying, I just don't think there's going to be a no-brainer out there. It's going to take all of our abilities to be able to scout and find the right guy, find the right fit. Could there be two quarterbacks? You saw Holden go into the portal yesterday, and then you had the Hank blunder. Maybe it's jumping of the gun. I know Hank wants to be here. I think Hank can be a really good quarterback in time at Auburn. But I also think it's very possible that after his conversations with the coaching staff early this week, that if he doesn't get the answers that are, fitting to him, you could lose Hank as well. Again, I don't think he's notified anybody. I don't think he has any intentions of going into the portal before talking to staff, before really figuring out what the pathway is moving forward to playing, whether it be in 2025 or 2026, more than likely 2026. But you could be looking for two quarterbacks. You could be looking for maybe a one-year guy, and then, a younger guy that could be a backup and just help compete with that, with that young, very talented room that's coming in. Not coming in. Walker's already here, but with Deuce coming in as well. So there's a lot that's going to be going on. We're obviously it's going to be day to day as far as what direction things could go. I wish there was a clear-cut answer right now, but we got to be patient. We got to see how this thing develops. But with all that being said, you're out of chances. The clock is up. You have a few weeks. You have a few weeks to get this thing figured out because you've exhausted all grace, I think, from a lot of sides, and you just got to get it fixed. You can't continue. It can't continue to be the same thing. Now, my faith in this staff goes all the way back to, you look at just the long track record of success they've had with quarterbacks, and you got to look at that and say, at least point to say there is a proof of concept out there. I know it hasn't happened at Auburn yet, but there is proof of concept out there. And that's why I think that's what's afforded Hugh the opportunity through these two seasons to be able to still have the the alumni behind him, the money behind him to be able to go recruit like he is, and now go to the portal and be able to spend big and be able to compete with those top guys. So we'll have to see what happens. We're still a few days away from the portal opening up. You're going to have high school signing day. They're still obviously trying to hold on and close with several names, and we'll talk about those as far as like a signing day preview tomorrow. And then obviously anything that updates, we'll obviously keep you posted as well. So guys, I really appreciate it. It's going to be an exciting week. It's going to be an exciting several weeks. This is one of the more fun times that's not part of the season. And honestly, this part's been more fun than the seasons have been for Auburn for the several years. So we got to get ready. We got to buckle up because you're going to have a lot of stuff going on here over the next several weeks. So guys, thanks for hanging in there. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, like it. If you like this channel, subscribe to it. Follow me on Twitter, _Charlie_5. You know we're going to be back every single day to another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.